that same mistake all the time. So yes.
So welcome everyone. If you are joining us for this amazing conversation, first of all, I hope that your socks have been blown off across the room by the conversations that we've been having today. And we ain't done. We have another one coming up. My new good girlfriend. All of these amazing people are my good girlfriends that I have the opportunity and the privilege of sharing with today. So Iris Chen, did I say that right?
Yes, that's right.
Iris is the leader of this amazing movement, I'll call it. Because to me, that's what it is. It's a movement. And I want to make sure that I say it right. Untigering, is that correct?
You got it.
And so, Iris, before I give it all over to you, can you just give us a brief little snippet about who you are and about what untigering is and means? And then I will turn it over to you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm Iris Chen. And like Karima mentioned, I started this, it just started out as a blog, untigering. It's, we talk about deschooling and unschooling, and untigering is really in that same vein where I'm trying to move away from so-called tiger parenting. So for those of you who don't know what that is, tiger parenting is something that was written, that term comes from the book by Amy Chua called The Battle Hymn of the Tiger Mother. And she's like this Chinese American Yale law professor. And it's talking about the way that she was parenting her children and also the way that she was parented. So it's often a style that is maybe associated with Asian Americans or children of immigrants, that immigrant push to succeed and excel and prove ourselves in the world. And so I am a child of immigrants. That's definitely the type of parenting that I grew up with. And so I was getting to this point in my relationship with my children where things were falling apart. I think many of us share that same story where we're trying something, we're going along and sort of like continuing on these patterns that we have lived and that are all around us. And then we're discovering like something's not working, something doesn't feel right. My children are pushing back. They are not happy. I'm not happy. There's so much conflict. So yeah, I got to this point in my relationship where I realized I need to do something different. It was very practical at first, right? It's like, this isn't working. How can I find something else that will work? And came across peaceful parenting, conscious parenting, started following all these people, learned about unschooling and also how that was so consistent with peaceful parenting and parenting decolonized that Yolanda's, has spoken about, and began my own journey of really moving away from that type of parenting, that type of relationship with our children, where we're just trying to use our power to control and coerce them and mold them, groom them into the children that we want them to be, and really letting that go so that they can be who they want to be.
So, Iris, I am so blown away by how you put that together, right? That untigering process. And so, the talk that you're going to give us today is on redefining success. Did I get that right?
Yes.
And what I found so interesting is when you said that that was your topic, that's also the keynote for tomorrow.
I know. And maybe I wouldn't have chosen that if that was the case, right? I would have been like, oh, she's covering it. I should choose something else.
No. But when Stacy gave us her topic, right? And I met with her like weeks ago, I was like, oh, that's good. And then when you said it again, I said, this needs to be spoken on. So without further ado, Iris, again, it is my absolute privilege to have you share with our families that have gathered here today and the ones that will hear this in the future. How do we redefine success? And so, my friends, listen in closely now and then come back tomorrow and listen in again, because I have a feeling Some of us need to hear this more than once. So
Yeah.
the floor is yours, and then you have the floor until about, I'll say 3:15, and then if you can take some questions at around 3:15.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you. Yeah, so this is the Redefining Success breakout room. And actually, I listened into Robin, you sharing this morning, and I was all inspired because I have done this workshop before and I had my PowerPoints up, I had my outline. I was like, okay, I'm gonna go through these points that I want to make. And as I was listening to you, I was like, oh, I still need to deschool and unschool the way that I communicate and the way that I want to present and teach. And so I'm just gonna, like freestyle it a little bit and really want this to be more of a discussion, a conversation, and I don't need to do the PowerPoints unless you want some visuals, but yeah, because I want to be able to see your faces and to be able to feel like I'm interacting. And when I have the PowerPoint, when I share the screen, then I can't see all of that. So we'll try it this way and see how it goes. But yeah, I'm so grateful. Like today's topic is really about getting to that nothing, right? The deschooling process. So like, I want this space for us to examine what it is that we have been conditioned to believe about success, how we got there, and really to begin to dismantle and deconstruct and like say like, okay, that doesn't make any sense. I've been fed these messages, I've been fed these lives, I've unconsciously gotten on that train and ridden that, but it's gotten me to a place where I don't want to go. And so yeah, like my first question for us is just, what did you have to do and who did you have to be in order to be successful? So I know like when we maybe coming to this conference and even this breakout room, we're thinking about like success for our children and how to prepare our children for a career or for the world. But I feel like so much of our parenting, so much of this deschooling, unschooling process is really about us. It's about our beliefs, like Tyra was just sharing before, right? It's so much about how we need to change our perspective and our mindsets and our paradigms. So a lot of the questions I have may be more about ourselves, about us as parents, than about our children. So yeah, just the first question, what did you have to do and who did you have to be in order to be considered successful? I'm going to post that in the chat. Do people have the ability to unmute?
Yeah, they do. And so I love it. That would be so much fun. So folks, you can unmute yourselves. Let's make sure that that is in place. Go ahead and unmute yourself. And this is a discussion, my favorite
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Who would like to share?
Iris, if you just identify who you want to ask the question to, and I'll make sure they're good.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Like if you want to raise your hand, I don't know if I can see everybody because there's two, or you can also type your answer in the chat. So that we can have multiple people answering that way at the same time.
So if you want, we can unspotlight you so that you can see everyone gallery view. Would that be better for you?
No, I can follow her. Ian, or is it Ian? I'm gonna make sure I'm not saying it wrong. He has his hand raised.
Yes, yes. Ian or Ian.
It's Ian, but I'm gonna let my wife take the stage since I'm taking the stage tomorrow.
I feel like, well, so we started unschooling like three years ago. I left the school system as a teacher, and I felt like in order to be successful in that atmosphere, I had to be a people pleaser. I had to sacrifice my health, I just had to overwork, and in order to get the funding that we needed, I had to be in survival mode. And you know, when I got CPTSD, or when my CPTSD got triggered, then I realized like this isn't worth it, because I have to show up for my children, not for my child. And in order for it to do that, I need to take care of myself. And that means I need to let go of all of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. I don't know if you want to share your name. You can.
My name is Whitney. Hi.
Whitney. Hi. Yeah. So, like, when we want to achieve success in these institutions or in these systems that require us to sacrifice ourselves in order to meet their expectations, right? So we can succeed, but we really suffer so much in order to meet their expectations, because in a lot of these situations, in a lot of these systems, they're not concerned about our well-being, really. They're concerned about their own agenda and promoting their own goals, right? And as long as we're willing to jump through those hoops and sacrifice ourselves for that sake, then we suffer, but they may benefit, right? So there's a lot of ways that we need to question those institutions and just opt out. Like, I'm not doing that, sorry. And if enough of us opt out, then maybe those systems will change. Maybe those systems will realize that they don't control us. They cannot demand those things of us, that we as a people have power to push back against the systems. Yeah. Anybody else want to share, or just type in the chat? What did you have to do and who did you have to be in order to be considered successful? I mean, it can be right now as an adult or even as a child. What messages did you get? Robin said, I had to be perfection. Yeah. And a lot of these things aren't so explicitly said. You know, it's not like you have to be perfect, you can't make a mistake, but we see what happens when people make mistakes. We see what happens to the messages, the shame, the punishments, all the things when you don't get straight A's or when you don't get the 100%, when you're not the top of the class. And so as children, we definitely absorb all those messages, we take those in and we make meaning out of them, right? So yeah, even the implicit messages that we get can really shape what we believe about success. Lindsay said, do what I'm told and not question it, because that's what we are supposed to do. Yeah, like how we're trained to be people pleasers, we're trained to not question authority, just meet those expectations. It doesn't matter if it doesn't make sense, just do as you're told. Yes.
Yes, Jasmine has her hand raised if you want to take a question.
Oh, yes, please. Oh, yeah, Jasmine.
Yeah, I was just going to share. I think for me as a kid, what defined if I was successful or not was this idea that I was reflecting that the adults who were in charge in my life were doing a good job. Like, I felt that it was my job to prove that they were all doing a good job. It's something that I'm trying really hard to unlearn. I don't want my kids to have that type of burden. It's not their responsibility to prove that I'm valuable or worthy.
Yeah. So like how our behavior, our performance reflects on the adults in our lives. And even as a teacher, I was a teacher in the past too, how that can also be for teachers, like, you know, like if your class is doing well, if they're well behaved, if they are getting good performance on the standardized tests, that reflects well on you, right? And so there is that pressure that adults put on children to you know, perform and achieve in certain ways so that the adult can feel good about themselves.
I have to jump in on that one too, Iris. That was also there for me. It was this, the gaze of the other parents, that my parents would receive accolades and attagirls when they disciplined me in front of their peers, right? And so it was like my job to make them look good in a sense. But then success was also defined by, yeah, like someone else said in the chat, not asking questions, but following along with what someone else has said. But then, and then after this, I'll allow someone else to share. Success for me was defined by meeting the success of someone else. Right. So it's almost as if I chose something for myself to be successful, but if my choice of success did not meet the expectation of either my parents, my church, my teachers, my mentors, the elders, my friends, even, then that was not deemed successful. So success, like beauty, was in the eye of the beholder. And I wasn't, and like my friend that just shared, I am just now flexing in me defining it for myself, even if it is in opposition to what someone else might call successful.
Yeah, thank you so much. We'll get into that definitely about how we get to define it for ourselves. Natalia, did you want to share?
Yes, thank you. I come from at least 4 generations of women who were not allowed to be who they are. You know, like I was fortunate enough to know my great grandmother and my grandmother and my mother, and they were all creative individuals who were growing up in the Soviet Union, and all of their endeavors were completely pushed down and shut down, and created a bitter relationships between their mothers and daughters for 4 generations, and continued, you know, and it continued with me where I wasn't allowed to, you know, think of what I would want to learn. You know, like I had a scholarship and I had to go and study what was good for the family. And now at the age of 45 that I started homeschooling my kids, I'm homeschooling myself like crazy. Like I'm taking so many courses and I'm learning so much stuff that like actually is in line with who I am. And I am struggling with this with my kids the most. Like it is so hard for me to see them on like video games and being like, oh, this is not good for you. Like you know, like, so like trying to like still like take that out of me and like get past that is so hard. Like I'm like totally still in the grips of it. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like we've been sharing, it is a lifelong process of deschooling because so many of us have grown up in that compulsory schooling environment where we were conditioned to not know who we were, to just meet other people's expectations. And where there are labels, there's judgments about what is academic, what is educational, and what isn't. And so then we have feels when we see our children doing things that don't fit into that school paradigm, right? Like if they spend all day outside whittling wood, or if they're playing video games, or if, you know, whatever it is that doesn't necessarily fit into that schoolish framework, we begin to freak out and, you know, feel really uncomfortable with it. And so that is part of our deschooling process as well, to just, you know, knock down those walls and push the boundaries of what does it mean to actually learn? What does education mean? What does learning mean? And how can we see learning as holistic and as like all of our lives being meaningful and being opportunities for learning, instead of just like, oh, you know, it has to be these subjects, it has to be in this way, it has to be proven and assessed and all those things. Really, again, questioning all those things that we learned from school. So my next question is like, okay, a lot of us are processing the messages that we got about success, and most of them are negative, right? Most of them is like, okay, they didn't serve us, they don't make any sense. But what are we bringing into our parenting now? Like when we think about our children, what do we believe our child must do or be in order to be successful? And there's no right answers. Like it can be, it's just honest, right? Like for one, it's like, maybe my child needs to go to college in order to survive in this world. Maybe that's a belief.
You are bringing the heat and thunder today. So I'll kick this part off. What a great question. So I have 6 kids. 3 of them are now adults, and then the younger ones are 16, 14, and 11. Now I'm at the space where success means independence. Success now means, okay, all right, you are in charge of managing yourself over there. Over there, not here. So that's what success looks like. And we were just having a conversation last night that getting to independence means something different for every single child. There are some kids that I have to pull back a little bit and say, whoa, wait. Like you think wait a minute, there's still something else that you need. Whereas there's other children that I got to say, all right, let's go, get on out there and shove them out the nest. And so this is a perfect question. Success now looks like independence. And when can you be independent over there? Great question.
Yeah. And like you said, I think that means different things for different children, right? And I know that there are many cultures where that idea about independence is it looks different than maybe our typical Western American view of what independence means, where in Asian cultures is very collective. There's multi-generational households. Oftentimes there's not necessarily like a separation. Maybe that sometimes is an issue, and maybe sometimes it's a blessing, but and then there's issues of like disability or neurodiversity, where your child may never be independent in that way. And so like if we have very rigid definitions of success, and it's like, oh, my child needs to be independent in that way, and our child is not able to, then have we failed? Are they failing? Can they never be successful? Right. So again, really looking to see who it is our child is and allowing them to define it for themselves and to resist these boxy definitions of it. So I think Ian or Whitney, you were the first to raise your hand.
Kind of like what you said, it's different for different ages, different kids, and I was thinking it's a lot different for different ages. And right now, my daughter's 7, and for us, it's been about seeing where she's at and allowing her to advocate for herself and having a voice in our home and allowing her to explore and tell us what she wants, and us being able to support her and guide her the best way we can. And for us, that's been a success, because before, I feel like we worked really hard on reconnecting with her since we left the school system, and seeing her now going into self-directing and taking her own lead in things. It's been exciting, and if I feel like her happiness and seeing her spark, and like she still skips, like everywhere. And I think that's success for us, seeing her still be able to be her.
Yeah, I love that. And Raquel in the chat said the same thing, where we're empowering our children to advocate for themselves, to speak up, to know who they are, and be able to be who they are in the world, and especially in our family. Yeah, Natalia, did you want to share?
This for me, success would be for my kids to know who they are, because that was something that I didn't get. And also because this is my first year, I feel like I sabotaged that fucking time, for my kids, because, trying to, so like it, I mean, yeah. So, but that is really, that's my goal of success, is that if my kids can discern on who they are and they can listen to themselves. And I hope that they would know that they can learn anything that they need to when they need to. Maybe by watching me like learning stuff now, I don't know, but
Yeah, that modeling for them. And you were talking about maybe sabotaging it, and especially as we're starting, because we feel a lot of triggers, we feel a lot of fears when we see our children being themselves, because we grew up in environments where, again, we were punished, we were shamed, we were blamed, so many bad things happened to us when we were ourselves. And so we learned how to hide those parts of ourselves, how to conform and all those things. And so when we see our children being fully themselves, it can be very triggering. And so just to validate that, and just to say that that's normal, like it's totally normal for us to feel, a lot of discomfort when our children are fully themselves. But I think what we can do in that space is to notice and reflect and pause and do the inner work, instead of like, I'm feeling fearful and anxious, and so I'm going to exert control over my child, or I'm going to punish them, or I'm going to try to control them in some way so that I can handle and manage this fear. So hopefully, instead of doing that, and of course there will be times when we fall into that trap and we will have to repair, but hopefully we can resist some of that, like know where it's coming from. It's really coming from our own pain and our own fears. And so how to take a pause and like do the work, do our own work, so that our child can be free to be fully themselves.
yeah, I mean, if I may, I feel that I'm taking my kids on like a wild journey of adult healing. Like I am trying to heal in front of them, and it is a mess in a way. And so they know, they can confront me, like if they're like, Mom, you're about to get mad, like, so we talk about it and I apologize. And I'm learning breath work, I'm learning to breathe and to pause, but it is, yeah, I mean, it is like, yeah, it's like baptism by fire. I don't know. It is really, I mean, I'm like ready to quit a lot of times. That's what I want for my kids, because I mean, it's just, I have like 3 Ivy League degrees and I don't know who the hell I am, like, so it's just.
Yeah, but I think
Well, I
it's
guess
really beautiful. Like maybe what you feel maybe bad for this baptism through fire that you're putting yourself and your children through. But I really feel like that's a beautiful gift that you're giving them, actually, to show your humanity, to show your humility, to show like, I'm trying, I'm learning, I'm growing. We're all in this together, so that our children also feel that freedom. It's just like, okay, I've been going down this one path my whole life and I'm realizing that this isn't working for me. And instead of like just barreling through and not questioning it, I'm going to make a shift. I'm going to make a change. And it's hard and it's messy, but I know this is right. And like for you to model that for your children, and for you to be like open to their feedback, I think is so powerful. And I think that's really a gift that you're giving your children. Jasmine, did you want to share something?
Yeah, sure. I was just to answer the question. I just want to be clear, though, I'm really bad at staying focused on this piece. I have a strong education background. But I think that for us, our kids, what I feel would be success is if I see them feeling open and not afraid to go after what they find valuable. And maybe I went a little farther, like they know how to evaluate access the doors that are in front of them, or I guess access the tools to open the doors that are in front of them, and decide which ones they want to go through. For me, like, traditional education is a really good way to do that. And so it's hard to move into for me, it's hard to move into this mindset that without going that traditional education route, they have access to a lot of tools and they'll know how to use them when they see what they want.
Yeah, I love like how a lot of what we're sharing is, empowering our children to have the skills, have the tools to live and choose a life that they want. I think specifically like what you were sharing in terms of, trying to move away from a schoolish mindset. Personally, for me, I feel like unschooling is more like, it can really equip us to learn what we need to do in ways that school cannot. Just like after we've graduated from school, we're adults now. How do we go about learning the tools that we need to learn? We go to YouTube, we go online, we go to the library, we talk to somebody else that knows how to do it. It's just like, we don't need school to gain the skills that we need. We have access to so much information. And so I think what unschooling provides for, if we're starting with our children at a really young age, is that they do have the creative tools and outlets and resources. Hopefully they know how to get access to the information they need to learn, instead of feeling like nobody's teaching me, or nobody has handed me a book, or nobody has given me homework to do, and I don't know what to do with myself. Which is how I felt after I graduated, because like through my whole childhood, it was like, okay, I have this path that I'm following. I'm checking off these things on the checklist. I'm doing what I'm told. And then I graduate and nobody is telling me what to do. Nobody is giving me a checklist, right? And then I feel completely lost. I like have no idea who I am, what I want to do, what I like, So I think the gift that we give to our children when we unschool is that hopefully at a young age, they are empowered to know who they are, what they like, and how to access and get the information that they need in order to pursue those things. Right. So like when I think about traditional success, like the messages that we have received about what, the type of success that we should pursue, I've broken it down into 3 S's. And if you read my book, you may have read this in my book, but the first one is status. So a lot of the success that we are encouraged to pursue is really about status. It's about how others perceive us. It's about recognition, accolades, affirmation. It's about the outward gaze, trying to appeal to the outward gaze. A lot of what we're talking about now is about like knowing our children, knowing who they are from the inside and being empowered to live that life. But the success that most of us were encouraged to pursue is not about knowing ourselves, but is about these external standards that we have been told to try to pursue, right? The second S is stats, the statistics, the measurements and metrics that prove to us that we are worthy, that we are good, that we have value, so from a young age, that might start being like the number of stickers you have on the behavior chart, or your grades, your GPA, your SAT score. As you get older, it's like the ranking of the school that you go to, the number of followers you have on social media, the salary on your paycheck, the postal code that you live in. All of these are the stats that we try to pursue in order to feel like we are successful. And the last one is status quo, where we're just following the pack. We're not questioning what we're doing. We're just like going through the motions, being pulled along by the current. Where we're not, we're just trying to keep up with the Joneses. We're not trying to question the systems. We don't take risks. Instead, we look to see, okay, what has worked for other people? And okay, I'll go and do that. For Asian Americans such as myself, oftentimes that means we stick to certain careers or certain fields because we've seen how that has worked for other people, how they've achieved success in those areas. And so I also need to go into those areas. And usually that means a career in medicine, engineering, law, business, accounting, anything outside of those 5 is like, highly discouraged because you don't see people succeeding in those areas, right? So yeah, status, stats, and status quo. So I'd love to hear which of those you relate to, or what other things have defined your beliefs. You can share or just type in the chat.
For me, I think it's the status and the status quo. I think I started out measuring myself against the status quo, following the path. But then when I realized that, okay, I'm different, I don't do what everyone else does, then there was this thing to deal with, okay, so I'm different and I define success this way, but that means that my status and my stats are going to be different than other people's. And it's acknowledging that I might not receive the same accolades because my status and my stats may be different, right? So like to walk away from my teaching career, to have a large family, to have 6 kids, to be a stay-at-home mom. I've had other Black women telling me, well, Black women have always worked. We've never, and I think that's a huge stretch, but we never had that stat of being the stay-at-home mom with all of these kids. And so my stats look different. And as a result, I didn't get the same acknowledgement that other women did because I always wanted to have a large family. I chose to stay at home with them. I chose not to pursue my career. So yeah, the status, all 3 really, now that I think about it, were affected. Great question.
Yeah. And I think like what you pointed out is when we choose to live differently, the outside world might not consider us successful, right? So we might not be considered successful by those who observe from the outside. But again, it's like, who are we? What do we want? What is the type of life that is meaningful for me? Do I want a big family? Do I want to stay at home? Do I want to, and if we can choose, like be consciously, mindfully choosing our values and our lifestyle in a way that serves us, then at least we feel successful. At least we feel aligned and happy with our lives. And like, I think when we live into that confidence and that authenticity of who we are, that actually really challenges the status quo, that challenges everybody else to question like, oh, why am I doing this? Or why am I pursuing this? Like Karima's living this life and she's like, it's awesome. It may not look like what everybody else is doing, but it's good. And so I think when we have the courage to live boldly, that actually inspires other people to break free from those, rigid definitions of success as well. Robin, did you want to share something?
Yeah, sorry. I think it's a fantastic question as well. And, I love how you break it down into the S's, because I think the whole university thing, right, is a big one. And especially from, family that's from immigrant family as well, there's a huge expectation on post-secondary, huge, right? Because especially if for many families who have gained anything that come from a place or country that is not developed or is struggling, and education has always been known as the way out in so many ways, the way to improve what they didn't have as well. Like, so for many of our families, so to not choose that is kind of like our years of struggle, that idea of what we have put into it, and your, that whole thing again of how privileged do you think you are that now you can opt out? This generation doesn't have to do that kind of thing, right? So I know I didn't opt out. There was no choice kind of thing. It was this is what you're going to do kind of thing. No, this is what we always do. But then the difference is the shift as well was having kids who have, who know what they really want to do, but then also say, that doesn't work for what I want to do though. So then what? If you're supporting autonomy and independence and we're expressing that, but then all of a sudden now we can't express our autonomy and independence with where we want to go and what we want to do and how we want to get there, then what's this point of living this life that we're living and all that we've been, working for and talking about and exchanging, so how much autonomy do we really truly have then? If it's still, we're doing this to get to this goal. So, but that, that status and stats and expectations is a big, big thing as well. It's a big shift for the idea of success.
Yeah, I think with like college or, a lot of these things where we can ask the question, how can I use this as a tool to serve me for the life that I want? So if it doesn't serve me, then I can just, I'll pass on it. But if it does serve me, then okay, I'll get that degree, I'll get that PhD, whatever. But it has to be a mindful choice, like you said. It has to be, out of our autonomy. And I think for many of us with immigrant parents, that they weren't given that choice. And so automatically choosing more education feels like, an expression of their power. And I can totally understand that. But like perhaps in the situation that we are in, we don't want to serve the system. We don't want to do it and jump through the hoops just because that's what everybody else is doing. We really want to use it to serve us and our family and help us to create the life that we want instead of submitting ourselves to a system that doesn't serve us. Karen, did you want to share something?
Yes, when we broke out into the breakout room and we were speaking with Yolanda on decolonization, we talked about our whys. One of the things that I spoke about was the shift from unschooling to the shift from homeschooling through the traditional methods to unschooling. And I found myself in that shift of wondering, well, okay, are they still gonna do the math, and are they still gonna do the reading? How are these things going to work? And if I can't make these things work, will they be successful? And it was the redefining of success to look at, but are they thriving? Are they happy? The things that my son comes home and shows me that he can do just from a day of playing all day. And so it really took me changing my measurements of success and letting go, as we've talked about many times, of those schoolish ways and those measurements of success. And so going from a complete 180 of, oh, my kids are ahead in all of their grade levels, to now they say, Mommy, what are we supposed to tell people? What grade are we in? You're not in a grade. You don't have a grade. What am I supposed to tell them when they ask me when I go to school? You don't go to school. When does learning happen? And they say, learning happens every day. And so now I sit back more proudly and trusting the process of deschooling and trusting the process of unschooling and trusting that if we give them more space, they're going to grow and develop in the ways that they should. So it becomes more purpose driven, but purpose driven by them. So that's how I'm redefining success. And I had to let go of the stats and the status quo, and coming from a background of academics where people validated my homeschooling choice because I came from academics, and me slowly but surely announcing proudly self-directed education and child-led education, because unschooling sounds like not schooling. That's horrible, because they don't know that school is horrible, but I digress. So those are my redefinitions or redefining, if you will, of success.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And I think that brings up like how like these definitions, these rules and rubrics of success, or these systems that like are encouraging us to like, you know, forget who we are in order to achieve these success. They're really rooted in you know, white supremacy, in capitalism, in all of these things that are very toxic and oppressive in so many ways. And yet we still jump through the hoops because that's what we think we need to do in order to achieve success. So I think we also need to be questioning like, why, where do these values come from? Are they actually values that we want to continue to buy into and perpetuate, or do we really want to challenge those values? Like, okay, your worth is not based on how much money you make, or your worth is not based on whether or not you go to an Ivy League school. All of those things, I think we want to challenge it. And not to say that there's anything wrong with those things, but just that just that we are worthy and valuable and can access happiness regardless of any of those things, right? Karen, did you want to follow up, or was that?
I did. I just will share this quick tidbit. So, you know, as we grow and develop as parents, I have 20 and 21-year-old daughters and 9 and 11-year-old sons. And the 9 and 11-year-old sons are the only ones who've benefited from unschooling. So the 20 and 21-year-olds are in university, and the 20-year-old is studying to be a professor of math. And she quizzes her brothers every time she's around them on their math facts. And I finally said to her, what's going to happen if he doesn't know 7 times 9? And she looked at me completely stunned, like, what? I said, what's going to happen? What is going to happen if he is not able to just spout this out? And she said, well, I guess nothing, Mommy, but you made me study my math facts so hard. And I said, and I'm sorry. I'm learning, I'm growing as a parent, but understand it's nothing wrong with the profession that you're going into. You love math, so you want to teach it to more young people. But if your brother never knows what 7 times 9 is, he's going to be what? And she says, well, I guess he's going to be just fine. And so, you know, again, this redefining success, and especially when you have a family that is multi-generational and had different, if you will, upbringings, how do you reconcile that?
Yeah. That's a question that I have to constantly ask myself. It's just like, okay, if they don't end up learning this, we're sort of like fed this fear rhetoric that like, oh, if they don't follow this path, if they don't know this particular knowledge, that, you know, they're not going to succeed in life. And that is just, if we think about ourselves and the knowledge that we use as adults, how much of it was really that relevant? You know, even 7 times 9, how often do I use that? And I have my calculator, I have my phone, you know? So yeah, really, we can question all of that. Okay, last question from Ian.
I would just, can you restate your question again?
I don't even remember what my question was. I think it was just like, out of those 3 S's, like traditional ideas of success, like what has defined our beliefs, you know, what have we
okay
seen?
Okay, I just I just felt like I wanted to share my experience, because I feel like, I guess it's a little bit different. I'm Okinawan Filipino, and my Filipino side is so different Like, and most of them didn't like push the you need to be a nurse, you need to be, you know, this and this. And but my Okinawan side, you know, I think it's you're conditioned with the whispers and the influences of your uncles and like and they're over there with their nice ties or you know nice clothes and like you need to be this, you should be this. And um I feel like because I saw how my parents, especially my dad, was heavily pressured, and how these expectations were so heavy on him, especially being a young parent, how it just tore him down. And I saw how my parents, you know, they were reaching for this status, and how like at an early age, I witnessed how it just tore our family apart, and how they ended up losing everything, like you know everything they wanted materially, but also spiritually, emotionally, and our cycle of our family just you know and crumbled. Um and so I guess in a way it taught me like that's not going to bring you happiness, it's not going to bring you balance, it's not any of whatever this chatter of people. And I was just, I guess that helped me become more autonomous in my choices. And I didn't care what they thought about what I thought was successful, you know. And but what really got to me was being in a school system that was super competitive. And you know, they became like, I guess, my foundation because my family wasn't. Does that make it? And so what I'm trying to say is that intoxicated like my feeling of adequacy. And like I guess I gave my power to their expectation of, you know, oh, we gave so much to you, you know, and because I came from like poverty, and they gave, you know, they gave so much opportunity, and they put like this pressure of like you need to give back, and you need to be successful in this so that you can give back to us. And it's just I feel like that grooming, I guess you'd say, was I don't even know, I kind of feel like I'm rambling. But I just wanted to like share how that was just a crazy ride, because everywhere around me I saw, you know, in our community, however, all the parents were just like nurse, lawyer, engineer, and we're just like just pumping them out. And it I don't know, it's really heartbreaking to see, because I feel like there's not just a linear way into nursing, medical, there's not just a linear way into this. And in a way we're just like making machines or robots or something, and it's just not authentic and it's not natural. And yeah, I just want to share.
Yeah. I actually had this whole thing about, you know, factors that shape our beliefs about success. And I talked about like immigration, you know, the model minority myth, you know, for others, it might be like Black excellence, it might be the American dream, it might be poverty, all of those things. So it's like all of those things that you're sharing about is, you know, just to recognize that the messages that we received about success come from somewhere. They're not like absolute truths, like, oh, everybody believes this. No, it's coming from somewhere. And a lot of times it's from trauma. It's from like bad things that happen in people's lives. So they're trying to protect you or trying to like push you in a certain way so that you don't have to suffer in the same ways or whatever it is. And so for us to recognize those influences, bring them to the surface, like what we did in the beginning, naming what it is that we actually believe, recognizing where we absorbed some of those beliefs from, you know, from media, from family dynamics, from schoolishness, from our peers, all of those things, so that we can begin to dismantle and unschool. Like once we can name those things, bring them to our consciousness, then we can address them more directly and recognize like, okay, that's how I've been living, but I don't actually believe that. And so how can I choose differently now, you know? So we get to choose what we move forward with in terms of, you know, the lifestyle that we are pursuing, and let go of the things that may have influenced and shaped us in the past, but no, we recognize now are not true for us. So I know that we have to wrap it up, and I didn't even get into like how we can define success, but I think a lot of you have already shared it. One quote that I just wanted to share from Maya Angelou, I'll type it in the chat. Success is liking yourself, liking what you do, and liking how you do it. And so just like a lot of us said, I don't even like the word allowing, empowering, honoring our children in their journey to define success for themselves, really taking a step back so that we're not projecting our own agenda onto our children or our own definitions of success, but really following their lead, empowering them to know who it is they are and what type of life that they want to live, and supporting them in that. So thank you so much for being here. We probably don't have time for any questions, but Karima.
Oh, wait a minute. I'm over here like, what do you mean our time is up? We gotta go. So Iris, please tell people, how can they get in contact with you? How can they find your book? How can they join any organization that you have so they can get more of this amazing content?
Yeah, so I have a website, untigering.com. I have different workshops that you can purchase there. I also have like a group coaching membership where we meet twice a month and just talk through unschooling and parenting stuff. Again, a lot of that is like the inner work that we have to do. It's not like, okay, how can I get my child to, you know, stay in bed, whatever it is. It's not really about that. It's really about the work that we're doing. And it's like a small intimate group. And I've really loved just connecting and creating community that way. Like what we've been saying, is so important for us to have community so that we know we're not alone, right? We know that there's people who've gone before us, there's people that we can encourage, there's people who are going through the same thing, because it takes that community in order to begin shifting and to not feel so alone. What we're doing is really like radical and countercultural, and so we really need each other to support one another in that way. And so you can also find that on my website under membership. And then you can find me on social media, mostly on Facebook and Instagram at Untigering. Oh, for my book, you can find it pretty much at any place where you buy books. Amazon, if you don't want to use Amazon, you don't have to. There's like Barnes and Nobles and other online platforms, retailers that you can buy it.
Iris, thank you. Oh my goodness, I've taken a whole page of notes. Thank you for leading us in the process of redefining what success means. Everyone, make sure that you have followed her on Instagram, Facebook. Make sure that you have gone to her website. Iris, can you put your site in the chat for us, please?
Yeah, I'm doing that right now.
That it's there. Well, I'm going to start recording this section.